to the point that we showed our sales representatives what a high-performing coach does and the results a high-performing coach delivers. Because one of the things we saw was that if you work for a high-performing coach, regardless of which one of those sales buckets you were in, low-performing, middle, or top-performing, if you worked for one of these high-performing coaches, your overall bonus was higher than somebody else who did not work for a high-performing coach. So when we put that data in front of our salespeople, what do you think they did? They started asking their coach, their manager, are you a coach? Oh yeah, are you a high-performing coach? And if you're not, what are you doing to be a high-performing coach? And then they did something that was really a great experiment. They created a social contract. The social contract was the manager says, I desire to be a high-performing coach. You need me to be a high-performing coach, so let's work together so that I can become a high-performing coach. What's the result of that? Even your high-performing salespeople raise their hand and want to be coached. High-performing salespeople want to be coached on average 6 hours a month from high-performing managers. So this really works. That's what I'm trying to impress upon you, that if you want to improve the productivity of your environment, yes, you can go invest in tools to look at how to allocate capacity across territories. Yes, you can go look at tools that will help you measure what's happening with the customer. And yes, you can invest in a new sales model. But as long as you have people that are selling and you have people that are managing those people that are selling, don't overlook the low-hanging fruit, which is the interaction between the manager and the salesperson. Okay, again, some of the results that we saw. Number one, we saw a 3 times improvement on the engagement of the teams. So when you go in and you ask people who work for these managers that are coaches, there's a higher affiliation and affinity for the company, for the organization, and the teams that they work on. They want to work for these people. Because just the opposite happens when you have a manager that's a poor coach, right? How many of you know that, what percent of the time do you believe when good people leave your organization, what percent of the time is it tied to their immediate manager? Anyone want to guess? 70% of the time when someone leaves your organization, these are people that you do not want to leave. 70% of the time when they leave, it's because of the manager. So again, what we're trying to look at is, A, trying to avoid unwanted turnover, trying to get rid of people who are not carrying their own weight and create a greater affinity for the organization. That's that 3X. The 30%, overall improvement of forecasting. Because there's this great relationship between the manager and the salesperson, the ability to do forecasting is better. Why? Because there's greater transparency between the salesperson and the manager. That's the bottom line. There's greater transparency. And the salesperson doesn't feel that the manager is playing a game of gotcha. Are you familiar with that game called gotcha? You know, it's a game between the manager and the salesperson. Let's see who can hide the most in terms of the cards that they have. And at the end, see if I can catch you doing something that you shouldn't be doing. We're trying to avoid that kind of environment. And that's what the best managers avoid, that environment. Overall, average performance was 102% of goal. Lastly, let's look at the third rail, which is improving management capabilities. Create a high-value conversation at higher levels in the organization. Become a trusted advisor for the customer. Influence larger amounts of spend and fewer transactions. What am I describing? Now I'm describing your selling model. So in step 1, I was talking about your salesperson. Step 2, I was talking about your manager. And now I'm talking about your sales process. You'll have to figure out what's the right sales process for you. I know that as the senior VP at Merck, I was a VP from 1996 to 2008. And in that period of time, I went through 3, 4 different sales models, trying to find the right sales model. And we're still trying to find the right sales model. We're forever trying to find that sales model. But one thing that I do know, and the research that I've participated in bears this out, irregardless of your sales model, there are certain attributes, behaviors, and attitudes that the best salespeople have in your selling model that will give you high performance. You'll have to go do the research to figure out what they are, because they may be slightly different for your company, your culture, and your selling model, but they fall into 3 categories, right? It's attitudes, it's behaviors, and it's activities that the best salespeople do for year in and year out sales performance improvement. And what I'm describing is a salesperson that has figured out that I don't want to be on the left-hand side of this continuum. I want to be on the right-hand side of this continuum. On the left-hand side, that's back to that transactional selling that I was talking about 20 minutes ago. That's when the salesperson goes in and talks exclusively about their product and why their product is the only reason that that customer should see them. The best people figure out, and hopefully the company figures out along the way as well, that I need to be somewhere in the middle to the far right. In the middle is where I've decided as a company, back to my value proposition as a company, my value proposition as a company is I have a predefined set of resources and products. I won't customize the product, but I will arrange a set of products and resources and services to individual customers so that it feels like it's customized. The people that are on the far right, people that do solution selling, those are people that are doing consultative selling. That means for each and every individual customer, you are customizing every engagement. Most pharma companies, most biotech companies cannot operate on the far right because our research and our products will not allow us to do that. So we're probably more likely somewhere between need-based product selling and a fully integrated partnership. That's where we should aspire to be. Now, if you happen to be a company that has a tremendously long sales cycle, and each product is customized for an individual institution, for example, then you probably have the opportunity to do a little bit more of the customization for individual products. So just to give you a sense of what this continuum looks like. Now, I've taken that continuum and I've blown it out for you so you can see more detail behind it. So it's the same continuum, but what I've tried to describe for you is what is it that we see when we see individuals and companies at different parts of this continuum. On the far left, again, was the product selling, remember? And on the far right are what the people that are doing more of the solution selling.